me thank all of you for coming out this morning, for your willingness to participate in this campaign, and for your willingness to knock on doors. Where's Phil? Phil here? Oh, he's parked in the car. Okay. What you are doing today is what I have done throughout my whole political life. Generally speaking, when I have run in Vermont, often we were outspent. And the way we won elections is we do it the old-fashioned way, as we knock on doors and we talk to people. Now, a lot of what modern politics is about, let me tell you what it's about. It is people raising unbelievable amounts of money for millionaires and billionaires through super PACs or other means. They have these, they go to these parties and they have everybody sitting there, and this guy gives, $1 million, this guy gives $500,000 and so forth and so on. And they take the money. They go to some fancy consultant, and they say to the consultant, okay, what do we do with the money? Guys, so we got to do all this polling. This is what you got to say. They go to somebody else and say, all right, here's your media stuff. And you got to put all these zillions of dollars of ads on radio and television. And generally speaking, that is what campaigns are about in America. Well, you know what? We're pretty old-fashioned, and we do it in a very different way. And I think our way is the right way, and I think it's the most effective way. At the end of the day, and let me just all tell you, so I don't want you to get too nervous, we are raising a lot of money, and we are going to have ads on, we're going to bore everybody in Iowa with our ads as well. And on radio, hopefully there'll be good ads, and so forth. So, it's not like we don't do that, we do. But what makes our campaigns very different is we do it in the grassroots way. And I know that sounds like a, nice horse. Why is it effective? I'll tell you why it's effective. At the end of the day, somebody's going to have all the ugly ads they want on. But if there is a good human being who has a good sense of what life is about, or what we believe in, you knock on somebody's door, you sit down and you talk to them, you can do more in 15 minutes than all the ugly TV ads in the world can do. That's it. Face to face, good people talking to other people is the most effective political tool that there is. And it's really what democracy is about, essentially. I believe in that. And it's not only do I believe in it, it's what works. So we are gonna be outspent. Although I gotta tell you, we have money. I'm not here to tell you we have no money, it's terrible. We have a lot of money. And we are gonna do traditional things. But at the end of the day, we're putting our money, a lot of our money and our resources and our effort into grassroots organizing. I see Phil came in, and Phil and I have worked together for 25 or 30 years, and he's knocked on more doors in Vermont than probably anybody else. Maybe next to me, I don't know, I've done it as well. When I was elected mayor of Burlington, I knocked on half of the doors in the city of Burlington. So this is what I believe in. This is called, and why I believe in it is not only is it effective, but it is people talking to people about the important issues in their lives is what this campaign is about. It's what we have to do in a democracy. I go, as some of you may know by now, and the media has heard me say it a million times, I got angry at the media. And I got angry at the media because they look at politics as if it were a soap opera or if it was a baseball game. How much money are you raising? And how are you doing in the polls? And da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Who cares? You think people out there care? They don't care about it. What they do care about is when they go to work, whether there's going to be a decent child care program available that they can afford for their kids. What they do care about is when they get old and don't have a lot of money, how are they going to retire with dignity? How are they going to afford the prescription drugs? Right? Are we going to cut Social Security, or are we going to expand Social Security? What they care about is, are their kids going to be able to have a decent job? Are their kids going to be able to afford to go to college? Is the water they're drinking going to be clean or filthy? Is the air they're going to be breathing breathable? Is the planet going to survive in a livable way, in a habitable way for their kids and their grandchildren? Media doesn't care about that very much, because they see it as a game. That's not a game. What we are involved in is fighting for the lives and dignity of people. That's what this thing is about. That's what I believe. Right? And you know our agenda, and I hope you become familiar with it. It is a strong progressive agenda which says that the billionaire class in corporate America cannot have it all. That in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, every one of our men, women, and children are entitled to a decent standard of living. That we cannot continue to turn our backs on the children, have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country. Millions of families can't afford to send their kids to college, while the rich get richer and everybody else gets poorer. That is a message, by the way, is not a radical message. That is a message that most people in America agree with. Media doesn't talk about it terribly often. And your job is to talk about it. And what's very good is we have, as I think most of you know, a very strong social media message. And we're doing fantastically. We have some really great people in DC and here working on social media, getting the word out. We're certain of that, the media. And I want to thank all of you because at the end of the day, the turnouts that we have, I don't know, we were in Cedar Rapids last night. We had 2,000 people coming out, 2,000 people. Great mix of people. You had college kids, you had older people, all kinds of people coming out. So I am feeling really, really good. Now let me just mention something. I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have. Some people may say to you when you go out, they say, well, you know what, I like what Bernie Sanders stands for, I really agree with him, but you know, unfortunately, he can't win the election. His ideas are too radical. And here's the response to that. Virtually everything that I am talking about, and what you agree with, is not radical. It is what the American people agree with. I'll tell you who the radicals are. The radicals are the Republicans. And your job, we can do this, figure out a way to do it, I don't know how well we're doing it right now, is to explain what the Republican agenda is. I'm on the budget committee, I'm the ranking member. Here's the Republican budget. You tell me how many of the people whose doors you're going to knock on agree with this. They threw 27 million people off of health insurance through their budget by eliminating the Affordable Care Act and making massive cuts in Medicaid. 27 million people. At a time when families can't afford to send their kids to college, cut Pell Grants by $90 billion over a 10-year period. At a time when families can't afford, and working families have a hard time feeding their kids, cut nutrition programs by billions of dollars. And then they gave over $250 billion in tax breaks to the wealthiest 0.2%. Not 1%, 0.2%. All right? A handful of people in Iowa, a handful, will benefit from that. Who supports that? That is a radical extremist agenda. Nothing that I am saying is anywhere near as radical or extremist as that. All right? And we're going to beat them because we are going to expose them. Whether the media wants to talk about it or not, we are going to talk about it. And you're going to talk about it. We'll give you the literature. One of the things I'm a little worried about, I don't know that we have the quality literature that I want right now. So we're going to work on that. But that's the issue. And the issues that we believe in, knock on doors. Ask people whether or not they think the rich should pay their fair share of taxes. They will tell you yes. Ask whether their kids should be able to go to public colleges and universities tuition free. They will say yes. Ask whether we should cut Social Security or expand Social Security. They will tell you expand Social Security. And when people say, well, you know, Bernie's ideas are great, but we can't afford them, explain to them that in the last 30 years, since 1985, there has been a massive transfer of wealth in this country. You know, Republicans get very nervous about redistribution of wealth. There has been redistribution of wealth. Problem is it's gone in the wrong direction. It's gone from your pockets to the top 1/10 of 1%. And on our website, under income and wealth inequality, under the issues that we have, is a nice pie chart, I believe, which shows you the top 1/10 of 1% has seen a doubling of its share of wealth in America. Middle class has seen a decline. All right. So the ideas that we're talking about are not radical. They are supported by the American people, and we can win this election. I think not only here in Iowa, not only win the Democratic nomination, we can win the general election because we are touching on the issues that people feel strongly about. So let me thank you all for being here. If somebody, anybody has a couple, we have a couple of questions. Yes, ma'am.
I was asking, would you repeat your quick synopsis of family values?
Sure. My family values, look, if you were a Republican consultant, and if your party believed in giving huge, and on record, I mean, that's on the record, no one's going to deny this, what I'm telling you is absolute truth. The Republican budget gives more than $250 billion in tax breaks to the top 0.2%. Cuts Medicare, Medicaid, education, nutrition. Would you campaign on that? Do you think in Iowa you're going to see a 30-second ad that says, vote for this Republican so he can cut Social Security and give tax breaks to billionaires, and we would appreciate your support? You going to see that ad?
Nope.
No, you're not going to see that ad. What ads are you going to see? The ads historically, and Republicans have done it for 25, 30 years, they're very smart at this. These guys are brilliant guys. They do a lot of polling, focus groups. What do? They pick up on people's fears and anxieties. All right? So what they do, 30 years ago, it's not in fashion anymore. They were often playing white workers against black workers. That was the undertone, big undertone. They played, how many campaigns did Republicans run against gay rights, right? Yeah. The gay people want to take over your schools. Vote for, Harry, he's going to fight them tooth and nail. Well, younger people have said, we believe in gay rights, so that's kind of in the background. There was always a latent thing of, hey, male workers, these women, uppity women now are going to be bossing you around making more money than you. You're going to accept that. They don't put that on an ad, but that's the kind of subtle work, playing on males' anxieties. And right now, what's the anxiety out there? Immigrants, hey, they're taking over the country, and I'm going to stand up to them, and that's that issue. So, that's what these guys do. But they won't talk about the real issues facing the American people. They won't talk about their desire to give tax breaks to billionaires. They won't talk about their desire to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education. And we're going to make them talk about it. Now, family values, what are their views? Their views are, it's a way to split the country in Iowa, less so in Vermont, but it's true in Vermont, all over this country. There's a division on women's rights and abortion. That's no secret, right? Everybody knows that. I have 100% pro-choice voting record. And that's my view, always has been, always will be. There are people who disagree. So what they will do is to take working class people and hang away at that issue. There are people who have anxieties about gay rights, and they will, you've seen the front page stories about this woman in, what was it, Kentucky, is it? Yeah, okay, and they will play on that issue, Planned Parenthood, all of this stuff. And that's the issue, that's how they divide people up. So they divide people up on immigration issues, abortion issues, on gay issues, and the end result of that, you should be knocking on doors of working class and low income people say, I can't vote for Bernie Sanders, he's pro-choice, he's pro-gay rights. And that's how they've succeeded. But here's the good news, I think, and this is based on primarily my experience in the state of Vermont, and that is, at the end of the day, when people will say, well, I may disagree with Bernie on gay rights, or I may disagree with Bernie on abortion issues, but you know what? He's fighting for my kids, and he's fighting for decent jobs, and the right of these kids to go to college. So I don't agree with him on everything, but I will vote for him. Now, when we talk about family values, one of the points that we should be focusing on is that many people in this country have no idea how backwards we are, how far behind we are other countries in basic rights. Many of the people whose doors you're going to knocking on do not know that we are the only major country on earth, wealthy country, that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. I live 100 miles away from Canada. Ain't a big deal in Canada. Everybody has health care as a right. Do they have problems in their system? Sure. You got a conservative prime minister. Never occurred to him to deny health care to all people in their country. You would get thrown out of office in 5 minutes. Okay. Europe, the same thing. We are the only major country on earth in terms of family values. Think about this one for a second. Maybe we can talk about it. Today in Iowa, a woman is going to give birth to a baby. Okay. If that woman has sufficient income, she can stay home, nurture her baby for the weeks and months that she needs. Father can be there as well. What happens to that woman if she doesn't have any money?
Back to work.
She goes back to work. All right. She goes back to work maybe in 5 days, maybe in 10 days. That should not be the case. A mom and a baby have the right to spend months together. First months of a baby's life are the most important months in that baby's life, in that human being's life, okay? And if you don't have any money, you're gonna be separated. Mom's separated from the baby. Does that sound like a family value to anybody?
No.
It's really literally the opposite. To tell somebody, I'm sorry, I'm taking your baby, you're gonna have to put that baby in childcare. By the way, it's probably not a good childcare program because you don't have a lot of money, and you gotta go back to work in order to support that baby. Not a family value? Well, around the world. People say, no, that's not a family value, and that's why all over Europe, you have countries which guarantee, depending on the country, 6 months paid leave. They understand the importance of mom and dad staying home with the baby. We don't. Only major country on earth. That's a family value to me. That's why we're going to fight for at least 3 months of paid family and medical leave. And sick leave, same thing. You got people who are working in McDonald's who should not be flipping the hamburgers that you're going to be eating because they're sick. But they can't take time off. They don't have any guaranteed paid sick time. We work the longest. How many people know that in the United States of America, because of the collapse of the middle class, we work the longest hours of any people around the world? You know that? We work incredibly long hours. And yet there are jobs being offered that have 0 paid vacation. We're the only major country on earth where people are not guaranteed at least some paid vacation. So all those things, to my mind, that's a long answer to your good question, but they are family values, and our family values are very different than the Republicans. Yes, ma'am.
Something that has been driving me crazy for years.
Well, we're working on mental health issues as well.
Is that public tax dollars all of us are paying into are being donated to businesses so that they can reconstruct and build fancier buildings or move their business from one town to another.
Yes.
And they're just ripping us off like
Absolutely.
crazy,
Yes.
and nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, some of us have tried. And the point you're making, you got 2 issues. If a corporation is shutting down a plant here in Iowa, shutting down the plant and moving it to China, they can deduct the so-called moving expenses, the considerable expenses it takes to shut down a plant and to move it. They can deduct that from their taxes. So we're saying to them, you can get a tax break, you can get a tax benefit by shutting down a plant in this country. I think what you're talking about is something different. And that we have this wonderful situation, it's not wonderful, where states are forced to compete against other states. So, if there's a company in Vermont, somebody in Iowa is going to come and say, well, we're going to give you a tax holiday for 10 years. We're going to train your workforce. Why don't you leave Vermont, come to Iowa? And then people in California or Texas are going to say to Iowa, well, we'll do even better. And you outbid and you outbid and you outbid, and the end result is taxpayers pick up the burden. And there are ways to deal with that nationally. And have been legislators who understood this competition between the states. We're all in America. We should not be, Vermont shouldn't be stealing jobs from Iowa, and Iowa shouldn't be stealing jobs from Vermont. There are ways to deal with that, which will provide tax penalties for those states that are spending taxpayer dollars trying to lure companies from one state to take another.
Did the businesses start that, or did?
Oh, it's a great deal for businesses. Look.
Way back.
Yeah, sure. Look, if you are a major automobile plant and you say, well, we're thinking of building, I forget what it is, a Toyota plant, and we want to hear what the states have to say. What are you going to give me to build that plant, which is going to create 500 jobs? You're going to give me in Texas this amount of tax rate, South Carolina, you're going to give me this. Tennessee, you're going to give me that? Sure. And then you start that whole cycle. And the end result is you're quite right. If the corporations are not paying local taxes or state taxes, who's going to pick up the burden? The middle class. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Welcome back to Iowa. Thank you for being here. So this past year in Iowa, we've had some difficulty funding public education. I was hoping you would talk a little bit about your policy positions or thoughts about public education versus many years in this country, people have been trying to privatize public education. What do you think about that?
Well, obviously, as a product of public education, I believe in public education for a million different reasons. And you're quite right. I'm going to come back to your question. Let me extrapolate for a moment. What you all should understand. I talk about the Koch brothers very often. And the reason is that the agenda that they are laying out really is, and this is not talking about with the media at all, is the agenda of the Republican Party. And what philosophically are they saying? And I have to give them credit. They have been extremely consistent over the many years. They hold the belief that government itself is not just the enemy, but it is government programs, in their view, take away freedom. In other words, if you are on Social Security or you are on Medicare, that you are less free, that somehow or another, if you get your insurance from the private sector, that makes you free. That when we have a minimum wage, this is true, it's true for public education as well, they call them government schools. We're indoctrinating the children. And with their understanding of a free society is you send your kids to any private school you want. So their agenda really is, and Republicans are adopting more and more of it, is to eliminate Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, environmental protection, education, and public education. And that's why you have seen this war for many, many years against public education. Obviously, my views are very, very different. I believe that in a democratic society, we need a strong, well-funded public education system. I think that the teachers out there, and people like police officers and other public servants, are the heroes and heroines of our society. These people are working often at inadequate wages. It is a pathetic state of affairs that teachers are taking money out of their own pockets to buy the paper and the stuff that the children need. Should not be happening. So, to answer your question, you're looking at a strong advocate, very strong advocate of public education. You're looking at somebody who believes that public colleges and universities should be tuition free. You're looking at somebody who believes that our child care system is totally inadequate. God didn't create kids starting school in kindergarten. We've got to pay attention to that as well. So, that is my very strong opinion. All right, last question. Yes?
In the wake of many recent shootings, Republicans have been trying to place the blame on too strict of gun control and saying that it could be prevented if everyone had guns and could protect themselves. Can you talk about your position on gun control?
Sure. My view on gun control is coming from a state that has virtually no gun control. So when we talk about gun control, we have to appreciate a very important issue. All of us are, can't believe what we see on TV much too often. It seems like almost every other day. In my state, when people talk about guns, when people have rifles in the back of their pickup trucks, what they're talking about is hunting. And hunting has gone on in my state for a very, very long time. It's part of the culture of my state, and I support it. You got kids going out in the fall hunting season with their parents. They enjoy the nature, and that's what they do. People do a lot of target practice in my state. So guns are one thing, and thank God, although we've had a tragedy a month ago, the crime rate in my state is fairly low. But I understand, and you understand, that when we talk about guns in large cities and communities, it means something very different. Guns mean kids killing each other. Guns means, people doing drugs and shooting at police officers and so forth and so on. So my position on guns is that, number one, coming from a state that has no gun control, these were not necessarily easy votes. I voted for very strong instant background checks, because at the end of the day, the most important thing that we can do is make sure that guns do not fall into the hands of people who should not have them. And that means people who have a criminal background, people who are mentally unstable, who might use that gun against somebody else or against themselves. Okay, that's number one. And we have to make that even stronger. Number two, there is what we call the gun show loophole, which means that if you walk into a registered gun shop, you have to do the instant background check. But if you go to a gun show and you're not a registered gun dealer, you can avoid that background. And that's a way that guns are getting into people's hands who should not have them. We got to end that loophole. Number three, a very difficult vote. But from day one, what I believed is there are certain types of weapons in this country, certain types of semi-automatic weapons, that nobody thinks are really used for hunting. They're used to kill people. They're military-type weapons. And they should not be sold or distributed in the United States. I voted against that as well. Fourth issue is when you see these terrible tragedies that we see, as often as not, you're dealing with mental health issues as well. And I can tell you that in my office, and I'm sure it's true of every senator and every congressman, we get calls from family members who tell us how worried they are about somebody in their family clique. It's a sad state of affairs, and I don't know the reason. I'm not a psychiatrist. But I can tell you, beyond any doubt, there are thousands of people walking the streets of the United States today who are suicidal and who are homicidal. And if you're suicidal, it's hard to imagine what goes through somebody's mind when they're suicidal. But the idea of taking down a whole lot of people with you is something that apparently is in people's minds. I'm going to die, I'm going to take people with me. Which means that we have got to greatly expand our mental health capabilities in this country.
Amen.
Because I can tell you, we get the calls of people who say, I am worried about my brother. I fear he may be suicidal or homicidal. And we can't find the counseling that he needs, that he can afford. And when people are in that condition, they should be able to walk into a door today to start talking to somebody. Not that that necessarily is going to solve the problem, but you got a better shot at it than slamming the door in that person's face. All right, I've talked. You're supposed to go out and work. Here I am talking to you all the time. All right. We'll be back, obviously, in your state a whole lot. We have come a long, long way. When I was here, 5-6 months ago, we weren't sure we were going to do this thing. And we've come a long, long way in the last 4 months. And I think we're going to win this thing because of your efforts. We have just put together, we have a great staff who I know you've got to meet. And you guys are going to be the backbone of the effort that we do. So I want to, I always say it's awkward for me to thank you because I'm not thanking you for me. We're in this thing together. We're doing it for each other, for my grandchildren, for your kids, your parents. We're in this thing together. I have my role to play, you have your role to play. But let's go out together and do what I think can be done. And that is if we bring millions of people to rooms like this, we will in fact be able to transform this country. This issue is not just electing me. The important thing is to transform America. And we cannot transform America unless millions of people stand together. Thank you all very much for being here.